Hair has often symbolized in many different cultures different meanings and different purposes. In some cultures, it's also shown as someone who is healthy, fit, most likely good looking and charming, whereas in previous histories and previous cultures, it's also shown to have power and wealth associations. This has many different cultural and social significance. In ancient Greek time, many of the gods would have had long hair as a sign of power and wealth. They would have even worn long hair going into many different battles. Many gods like Zeus, Apollo, even Achilles would have all followed this tradition. In many tribes as well, this would have a cultural significance. People would have long hair as a sign of courage and nobility, whereas people would have shorter hair if they had committed some sort of crime or had made many mistakes in the group. Over time, this has adjusted into our own culture, whereas we have these associations with longer hair for people that are healthier. These are generally more people that are better looking, that are shown in many different movies, and we have this perception overall. However, I wanted to get into this from a different angle today. I want to look at the psychological impacts of hair loss and how that affects the average person and how it looks overall. Fixing your hair for the day has become an integral part of everyone's morning routine or daily routine. So, in the event of someone losing their hair, what does that mean for them? As the saying goes, bad hair day, that alone means that people become isolated and separated from normal social and everyday routines from just losing your hair. I always think in terms of hair loss, in terms of any other event that you want to change. If you are unhealthy, if you want to go to the gym and fix your physique or fix your diet to fix your physique, or you could overall improve your body image by getting new clothes, by doing a lot of simple things. But when it comes to your hair, it's a little bit different. People don't have the same flexibility to be able to just flick a switch and get it done, or go on an 8-week or 12-week program, do a bit of a bulk, do a bit of a cut, and fix your problem. Here we have a few different factors at play. One of the research papers I want to get into was looking at a vast study of 5 different multinational countries, looking at people as a whole in terms of their appetite towards their hair loss, how they had felt, and how it affected their everyday routine. Why I started this in the very beginning was the fact that it affected me so much from the ages of 17 to 22 or 23. I felt so much pressure from this, and it wasn't until I started looking more into research I started feeling a bit better and taking proactive measures. So let's get straight into the research. This study in particular looked at the psychological effects of androgenic alopecia, which is male pattern baldness, in men. The investigation examined the psychological sequence of events after the balding of men attributed to their hair loss and compared balding and non-balding men. Subjects included 63 men with modest balding, 40 men were more extensive balding, 42 were non-balding controls. The results are quite interesting, and I want to look at a few different angles here. So, reported effects of balding reflected considerable preoccupation, moderate stress or distress, and copious coping efforts. So going back to my original thesis, when you are losing your hair as a male, often you just feel so much stress around this because firstly you're looking in the mirror, you're saying, is it happening to you? You're saying, what can you do about it on a daily basis? You're probably not speaking openly about this. Obviously, this is something that men don't want to talk about. Men don't talk about things in general. But because of that, you're keeping it to yourself. It's building up that internal stress. It's building up that distress as a result of this. These effects were especially salient among men with more extensive balding and among younger men, single men, and those who were an earlier hair loss onset. Relative to controls, balding men had less body image satisfaction, yet were comparable on other personality indexes. Personality correlates to the psychological responses to hair loss were identified. So what you can deduce from this straight away is the body image effect that this can have. And this is dating back prehistorical times. This is why I put in all the other examples. When we see people that are, killing it in the real world, great job, great career, we can try to do things to actively work towards this. When it's your hair, you're often comparing yourself to other people. The body image aspect is a huge aspect in this because people will compare it to your best friend who doesn't even have the actual hair loss gene. The hair loss gene is 5-alpha reductase, and this is the process between we convert testosterone to dihydrotestosterone through a process of 5-AR. Now, some people don't have this, and because they don't have it, of course, they have more healthy hair. So that's the first stressor that people have, is the fact that they feel in relative terms to other people, they become a bit more self-conscious about it, a bit more worried about it, and that's exactly what happened to me in my scenario here. And again, it goes back to just the comparison element. When you're comparing yourself to other people, it's the first thing you look at, and it's very, very visual, especially in the context of what women want. Do women want people with healthy hair? Even if they do or don't, at least if you have the option of having it, that becomes more beneficial for you in those scenarios. So that's where we get into a lot of the other papers here, which are going to discuss that as well from different areas in terms of social pressures that you feel. The second study I want to look at was the psychological impact of hair loss among men, a multinational European study. So the objective of this study is slightly different. Hair plays an important role in determining self-image, social perceptions, and psycho-functioning. The objective of this survey was to identify the impact of hair loss on the self-image in men in 5 European cities and the level of concern about hair loss with regard to image and personal attractiveness. This research looked at in many different cities in Germany, France, Italy, Spain, and in the UK. Random sampling were used with eligible people up from 18 to 45 years old. And this is where it gets kind of interesting, because the younger you are, I feel the more susceptible you are to a lot of the psychological side effects. Dating back to my earlier signs of hair loss, I was 17, 18, and it's almost a fear of like, someone's going to notice. It's like, you're in school, you're in university, someone's going to look at your hair and say, oh, that dude's balding. And that plays much more of an impact than, the actual factor of you losing your hair. As you get older, you just tend to give a little less about anything in general in terms of other people's opinions. So if you are 30, 35, 40, you probably will care less about you losing your hair or other people thinking about you losing your hair, because they also are. So this study has a wide range, so it's one caveat to look at this from. So looking at some of these results, over 1,500 of the men that responded to the survey, 47% reported hair loss. Over 70% of these men reported hair loss to be an important feature of image. 62% agreed that hair loss could affect self-esteem. That realization that they were losing their hair were linked to concerns about losing an important part of their personal attractiveness. 43% of men. Fear of becoming bald, 42%. Concern about getting old, 37%. And negative effects of social life, 22%. And feeling of depression, 21%. Reduced self-confidence and personal attractiveness were also reported of 38%. Less than 10% of men were currently pursuing treatment for hair loss, and 3 out of 4 had never pursued treatment for hair loss. I want to come back to that in a second, but before we get in there, it's very interesting to see the overall personal attractiveness, because again, when we look at what do women want, it's obviously the perception is that they want someone who is, tall, dark, handsome, perfect hair, all that good stuff. And people feel like that in the social settings, which is in here, 22%, they can't, they may not be as confident to approach girls at a bar or even speak publicly if it's in a conference. They might even feel that if they're speaking to someone and they're in a work context, that they would even feel slightly pressured in that scenario, or, they might feel a little bit not confident, essentially. But this is really interesting because as you go on, and I think this is a very much of a generational shift. So again, I'm 26, guys who are 36 or 46 never really had the same access to information that we do today on a treatment you can take. There's many different things from ketoconazole to finasteride, dutasteride, minoxidil, many other things like PRP and hair transplants. That information wasn't available. So it's kind of like people had to go through this stuff, and just experience it. Now, of course, it was available to get, but it wasn't broadly available as it is today. But if you go on to the bottom down here, it's interesting because it says, those few men who pursued treatment and reported success, N equals 73, also reported psychological benefits as a result. From 43% to 59% experienced improvements in parameters of self-esteem and perception of personal attractiveness. And digging into these values is hugely important. So again, one of the main reasons why I started doing this treatment and recording a lot of content around it is because I felt so insecure from it and I wanted to make changes. Thankfully I did. My hair's not perfect. You could probably comment on it and probably say they look kind of shit, but I wanted to make it better and I'm trying my best at it at least. But what's interesting here is that when people actually were working proactively on it, whether if it's a placebo effect in the beginning, they automatically start feeling better. And again, my advice here is not to take my advice, some bro on the internet, but you could speak to a medical professional, you get an online consultation, ask them what's the first step you can do in your hair loss journey, and then be able to proactively work on that. So it's very, very interesting. So we go back to the original thesis, people getting, feeling a lot not confident, self-esteem issues, working into that social life aspect too. And of course, you can go a lot worse into feelings of depression. That's also, it's a spectrum. People experience it in different ways. Some people get hair loss, shave it, move on with their life, and yeah, it's chill, But it depends who you are. Like, I've always been interested in image and kind of just like overall like look, and I like training and I like kind of fitness and whatnot, and so does the majority of males. So that's why when something like this hits you like in the fucking face, especially at a young age, it's tough to know where to go next. So overall, when you're looking online, you know, if you're looking to take some sort of treatment for it and want to go a step further, a lot of it is quite anecdotal information, especially from a psychological perspective. People are on different spectrums. There's 2 studies here I reference, which, you know, it's not exactly like a vast list, but it's enough to show you that, again, it can affect you vastly, but taking precautionary steps can improve you overall. You know, one impact for someone could be completely different for someone else. Someone could be very much happy with it, but I think having an open culture around this, and it goes back to the generational shift about this, I fundamentally do believe that there is such a scenario for young people now who are in the age bracket of 20 to 30 that can actively work on their hair. It can be something passive, it can be something quite more aggressive, but the option is there. But unless we start opening up the dialogue and speaking about it a bit more fairly and a bit more openly, then I suppose unless then, we're never going to get around to it. So you need more people who are pushing out content, you need more people that are doing a bit more research on it and sharing that information online overall. So if this is something that you do suffer with, or if you do want to learn more about, please feel free to check out some of my other videos. Please subscribe down below as well. Help the channel grow. Check out some of my podcasts as well, which is for young professionals, career young professionals, called Kickoff Sessions. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video.